That was Martin Patience there. We can now speak to Professor Ed Galea from the University of Greenwich, who's an expert in emergency procedures. Professor, thanks very much. What has struck me from the reports that we've received is that many people were told not to move. Why do you think that was the case?
I have no idea. I mean, it's very strange that people were told to stay where they are. I mean, normally what you would do in the event of a serious incident aboard a ship is that you would at least prepare to abandon ship, and so you'd start the assembly phase as soon as possible, and that means getting people to the assembly stations. That's places from which they can easily board the lifeboats and abandon the ship.
Can you also explain why so few lifeboats were actually launched? I think only 2 or 3 out of a possible 40.
Well, that again is very, very strange. Once a vessel takes on a heel of say 20 degrees, once you reach a heel of 20 degrees, it becomes impossible to launch davit-launched lifeboats. If you've got life rafts on board, you should still be able to launch the life rafts, get them into the water, but lifeboats become impossible to launch after the ship has taken on a heel of 20 degrees.
You're an expert in emergency procedures. Would passengers have done an emergency drill before they set sail?
Well, normally what happens is that if the voyage is of 24-hour duration or more, then it's compulsory by the International Maritime Organization, the IMO standards, that you must do an assembly drill. And post Costa Concordia, that drill now has to be done before the ship leaves shore. But for voyages of less than 24 hours, it's not necessary to do a drill. And so I assume on this voyage, the passengers would not have done a drill because the voyage was of a 14-hour duration. And so the passengers would have been very unfamiliar with the evacuation procedures, where the assembly stations were and what they needed to do in order to evacuate the vessel.
Very quickly, is that something you'd like to see changed?
Well, I think so. I think clearly for these types of situations where you've got complex vessels and where passengers are likely to be in cabins on the voyage, so the voyage is going to be, say, an overnight trip, even if it's under 24 hours, I think it's a good idea to have passengers do an assembly drill before the ship leaves port, so that the passengers become familiar with where the assembly stations are, the route from their cabin to the assembly station, and the procedures and the drills, where the life jackets are, and how they would get off the ship. I think that's quite important. It's not required under IMO regulations, but I think for certain voyages under 24 hours, given the type of vessel and the type of voyage you're going to be on, I think it might be necessary that these drills are done in a mandatory way.
You've given us a lot to think about. Professor Ed Galea there from the University of Greenwich. Thank you very much.